All right. So, Coach, you guys go 1-1 this weekend. First of all, how did it feel to have the team back at home, playing in the home environment after a long time on the road? And secondly, how would you assess how the team performed?
It was great to be back home and great to be in front of our fans and the band and everything that our home environment provides. It was a good weekend for us overall. I hate that we dropped the second match. I would say since the first weekend of play, this was the first weekend that we out-hit both opponents. We combined stats for the weekend, had more aces, more digs, more kills, more assists. We tied for blocks. So it's one of those things that we didn't get both wins, and we wish we would have this weekend, but we really feel like we took a step forward. And as people are growing into new roles and getting more comfortable, I think that showed this weekend, and that's something we can use to move forward into our next week.
You guys have had a lot of success so far this year in 5-set matches. Is there anything about your team that they just kind of rise up when it gets down to crunch time, when you got to go 5?
That's always an interesting one, because there are some years you feel like when you get in the 5th set you're going to do really well, and there's some years you're like, here we go again, kind of mentality. And so far our team's done really well. I think we lost one 5th set so far this year, 17-15 in the 5th, a high point. And that one we had chances. We were actually up 14, I believe 14-12 in that one. And so our team, for the most part, has played well. And it's been a little different. There were some matches we've won all in offense. This last weekend, the 5th set, we didn't perform particularly well on offense, but we dug a lot of balls and we served well. So as long as we find a way to do it, I think it says a lot about the mental makeup of the team, that they have that ability. Now we would really like to see that transfer into the last few points of the set. And really right now, if you go back to the Bowling Green match, was the first few points of every set. Having that intensity and having that focus to begin each set, so then you don't have to come from behind. You don't have that feeling of like, oh, we got to catch them, now let's put all this energy into doing it. And that's something we're working on now. It's just really prolonged focus, which is not surprising that it's a struggle when you're a young team. They're just kids out there that when they get that far into it, attention span starts to wander a little bit. And then, like even in our last match, we got ace 7 times, which is higher than I would like it to be. I think 5 of those 7 happened in the last 30 points of play. And that's something that we need to make sure we're focused for a long period of time.
You guys got Carly Remmers back into the lineup this weekend. How would you assess her performance, and what kind of a lift did she give to you guys?
Yeah, Carly isn't cleared yet to play 6 rotations. She is the back. The concussion part is all the way cleared. The ankle is mostly cleared. Enough to play back row, not enough to attack yet. But we're glad to have her back in some capacity. She brings a sense of calm, and I was really impressed with her serve receive this weekend, because she didn't pass the ball for a month, and she goes in and she passed really well right away, and that just says a lot about her confidence in herself, which is important, but also again the sense of calm she brings to those around her.
Stephanie Holman seems to be settling into that outside hitter role and even thriving a little bit now. How impressed are you with her progression so quickly at that position?
Well, you have to be very impressed, really. I mean, she goes from the first weekend, granted part of it, maybe learning against the Penn States of the world isn't the easiest way to do it, but she's growing and she's learning, and we had to adjust some things on offense to help her, and we've done that. Vera's done a good job finding a way to keep her involved, finding a set that works well for her. It's a little different set than what we run with some other players, but it allows Steph to really excel as the athlete that she is. She's a good athlete, hits a heavy ball. She's just having to learn, how do I handle the bad situations? How do I handle when I get balls from weird angles? And she's starting to do that at a higher level. I think we saw that this last weekend against Bowling Green. Not only did she have 16 kills, but I believe her error rate, maybe she had 6 or 8 errors somewhere in there, and she had to take several, quote, bad ball swings. And so that's been an important progression for her. Very impressed with, again, just how she's handled that, and looking forward to see where she can take that throughout the rest of the year.
I know since you and your coaching staff have gotten to Athens, one thing you've always emphasized is bringing in dynamic athletes. How is having those type of athletes here helping you deal with some of the situations you've had to deal with this year with lineup changes and everything?
Well, I would say it's great to have dynamic athletes. The challenge right now is, I would say, 3 of our 4 most dynamic athletes are not clear to play. And so that's just, It's great that they're dynamic, but it'll be a lot better when they're dynamic and cleared. And it's something that Tia, a really dynamic kid that's out there, is finding success despite not maybe having as much balance on our offense as we would like. Steph is a kid that I didn't recruit, but we're certainly glad that she is here. And I think we're getting to see her be more dynamic this year as an attacker. And I think really that the position of outside hitter, even though she didn't spend a lot of time training in it, it seems to fit her well. And she's performing well in that. And because she is such a good athlete and has such a good arm, it is, again, she's just developing. And so we're really, really pleased with that and hope to continue to see that going forward.
Lizzie's had to take on a lot of the offensive load for you guys. How do you manage that and take some pressure off of her to be the kind of go-to player just because she is getting so many swings?
A few weeks ago, she was 12th in the country in attempts, and that's way higher than what we'd like it to be. I think it's down to, before the weekend started, down to 19th, so at least it's trending downward, which is the direction we want it to be trending right now. So it's heading in the right direction, but it's something that we have to monitor, and we have to make sure she gets adequate rest, and we have to pass better so the kids can get more swings. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. But I think the bigger challenge for Lizzie right now is just when you go from being a complementary piece, being the fourth or fifth offensive option, to being the number one or number two offensive option, depending on the day, that it just mentally and emotionally, it's just harder. And I think that at times takes a toll on her. And so we need to continue to train her to be strong, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally, to get through those challenging moments when you are being asked to take a lot of swings. They're not always from good situations. I think she's done a good job compartmentalizing that, in that her defense has remained really, really high. She had, I think, 20 or 21 digs in our last match, a lot of them at critical times. And for the most part, serviced well. It fell apart at the end. But for the most part, it's passed really well throughout this year. So when a kid is struggling one way, we need to make sure they really excel somewhere else. But we need to keep working with her, knowing that she does carry a big load for us every day.
Coach, we already touched on the return of Carly. So what does that do for the lineup? Does that change? Do people go back to their original spots, or with her coming back into the lineup, do you just kind of roll with what you've already been doing for the season?
I don't even remember what our original spots are, to be honest with you. We've had a number of lineup changes this year. We kind of joke about that. We started the year with the lineup A and a lineup B, and somewhere I think we're about lineup P at this point. So Carly came in and played in zone 1, which was being played by Allison, who's replacing Mare, who was out with a broken toe. And so, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really know how that's going to play out, but I know that we like having Carly back. And whether she ends up playing in zone 1 or plays in zone 6 or is our libero or is our setter or whatever, Carly can do a lot of things for us. We're hoping a lot of those things don't come to pass, to be clear. But she can do a number of things. She's a really good volleyball player with high volleyball IQ. And we're just glad to have her back out there, and then we'll find the best way to use her for our team.
And then I believe I read the schedule right. It's Thursday, Saturday this week.
That's correct.
So what does Friday entail, since you have that day in between the matches?
Yeah, Friday's just a travel day. They'll go from Kent State to Ypsilanti, where Eastern Michigan is. And so it's a little bit slower day. And I'm not a fan of having a day in between as far as for your whole year, because it makes for really long trips. You know, we leave Wednesday, we won't get back until early Sunday. There are a lot of conferences that do that every weekend. You have a day in between. I've been in a conference before that did that and hated it. And so, but just doing it once on the road, I don't mind, and especially given that we're a little low on numbers and those reps. When you can get a day off in between matches, when you're low on numbers, that's a good thing. And so we're looking forward to that and just enjoying the time together as a team.
And then can you just comment a little bit about Kent State and then Eastern Michigan, what you've seen so far, anything?
Yeah, Eastern Michigan's a team that has, I would say, surprised a number of people. They were picked on their side of the conference very low, maybe even at the bottom, and they're doing really well. And they've had a number of good wins. From what we've seen, they block really well. They're just a good team. And so we think when we go there, we've had a couple of close matches there, challenging matches, and we know we're going to have to play well. Kent State is a team that it's a match that's always hard. I mean, they always get really excited to play Ohio. another rival that's not too far from us. And there have been some losses against that team because maybe we weren't as emotionally as invested as we needed to be. And so we, even after the match the other night, we started talking about, look, we have to be ready emotionally for this because it's usually a tough environment to play. Usually have a good band there and good support, and their team usually plays really well in that environment. Their record is deceiving. Their record is, they really have struggled according to the record. But we've looked on video, we've seen the play as they've played some other teams that we've already played, and so we've scouted, even while not scouting Kent, we've seen them play some of those teams, and we know they're a good team. They return, I believe, all their pin players. They return what I believe is one of the, if not the best libero in the conference. So you have the core returning. I mean, you have 4 players coming back. Kelsey Bittner, one of the best outsides in the conference. I mean, they have a number of pieces that are really, really good. And I know when you see a team like that has struggled but has all the pieces there, you know, anytime they can just take off. And so we want to make sure if they do that it doesn't happen Thursday night.
Coach, you mentioned a little bit about getting ready emotionally for Kent State. Do you think you were almost emotionally drained on Saturday after that 5-setter? Friday night?
It's hard to say on that, but I wouldn't say you're wrong, you know, if that was an observation that was made, because it was not just a win, it was an emotional win over your biggest rival. And the way it happened, you know, 15-13 and on a block to win the thing, you know, kind of a walk-off kind of moment that is exciting, but it is a little draining. And I almost think it was the way we started the match Saturday. We dominated the first set while committing too many errors. And that can be really, really deceptive in that you feel like, hey, we're about to dominate this team. It's like, well, they really struggled in the first set. And we won, I don't know, 25-16, 25-17, somewhere in there, while having 6 unforced errors. And that's not a recipe for success, having 6 unforced hitting errors each set. At some point, that's going to come back and bite you. And it did. As the match went on, Bowling Green got better. And although we performed well in the 4th set, we actually out-hit them by 100 points in the 4th set, but still lost. That's something that we just need to correct, and that's something that Miami, we had 28 unforced hitting errors. Bowling Green, we had 20 unforced hitting errors, and those are numbers that are just far, far too high. And those are things that we need to correct in our gym. And that goes back to the challenge of just when we don't have enough people to scrimmage, when you don't have the back and forth, you don't have the same attack routes, you don't have the rhythm of transitioning. That's what you start to lose. You start to lose that error rate control. And so we hope we can fix that in the next few days.
Can you talk a little about how Tia ended up coming to Athens and how that recruitment process worked with her?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Seems like a long time ago now. I'm guessing that would have been the end of her sophomore year, I think. I'm not positive on that, but I believe that's when it was. And it was interesting in that we're at Big South National Qualifier. It's in Atlanta. It's a huge event, huge event. It's in the World Congress Center. Usually they have somewhere between 160 and 175 courts set up in that one building in 2 different halls. And so it's massive. I mean, it's massive. And so in the morning, generally speaking, the open level teams play the highest level, and maybe your national level teams play. Then in the afternoon, the teams are generally a little bit lower. And a lot of coaches are gone at that point. They watch open and they leave. And we're there, you know, we're already there, and well, we might as well watch a little more volleyball, knowing that it's not necessarily going to be great. And so I'm walking around, and in that afternoon wave, I think literally in the first 2 hours of it, I think I had checked off 200 teams. Okay, I'm literally just walking by, and I'm seeing most people. I mean, I'm walking by lots and lots and lots of teams that no one is anywhere near my height. When we're walking lots of kids, the whole team's like 5'8", 5'6", 5'4". We're like, okay, no. So I'm just flying through the gym really, really quickly. And then we get to this court, and we see these 2 6'3" kids. And we're like, maybe I'll hang around for a minute. And we see, well, we like both of them a little bit, but we decide we like this one kid more, which is Tia. And she's very raw at that point, of course, but she's also really fluid as an athlete. And her arm worked really, really well. And I'm like, okay. I could tell this kid maybe hasn't done this for a really long time, but she does some things naturally that are pretty impressive, that are unusual for a kid that tall. She was the same height then. So she's 6'3", 15 years old, okay, at that point. And most kids that are 15 and 6'3", you know, trying to walk and chew gum, kind of suspect. And she's flying around doing things. So I talked to the coach afterwards, So, all right, what's the story on this kid? I'm like, well, she's the first year really playing at a decent level club. And I was like, okay, well, I'm assuming she's played other sports, right? I mean, she moves well. Maybe she's played basketball. Her arm works really well. Maybe she's like been a high-level softball player, maybe, because the throwing motion is just too good. And she's like, no, this is her first year of like playing organized sport. I was like, really? And it was just one of those things. She just naturally can do some things. Now, we found out later, much later, that she did ballet when she was younger. And so that's where the footwork, the graceful movement, a lot of those things, I would say probably trace back to that. But it is, we go through the process with her, and of course we're really excited because we can see this kid's future. Well, we don't care what the kid looks like as a sophomore. We care what the kid looks like when she's 19, 20, 22 years old. And so we saw just the future was incredibly bright for this kid. And we weren't able to get a visit scheduled. Long story short, we fast forward several months. We developed a relationship with her, and she feels like this is a good place for her. And of course, we made it clear, you're our number one choice. We'd like you to be here. And she actually ends up committing sight unseen. And she commits to us, and then she didn't visit until later, until after she was already committed. And so I think it says a lot about Tia and just her loyalty, because she committed to us, again, sight unseen, and had numerous other schools recruit her aggressively after she had verbally committed here. And that just says a lot about who she is as a person and her loyalty, that even though she had never seen our campus, she stayed true to her word. And then got here, and like everybody else, when you come to campus, you fall in love with it. You fall in love with the school, you fall in love with Athens, you fall in love with our team. Yeah, you got to tolerate the head coach, can't have everything, but you get there and then you fall in love with it. So I'm glad for her that it was justified. That loyalty that she showed before she maybe knew enough about our school to show that loyalty. Then she got here, and it turns out to be a really good situation for her. And then, of course, she's off to a great start. We'll see what the future brings. We're excited about that future. We think she could be an exceptional player. I think she could be a legacy kind of player here at our university and our program. And now it just comes down to how hard is she going to work. The work to go from bad to good, it's work, but the work to go from good to great is really, really hard work. And it's work 12 months a year, and it's coming in and watching video on days you don't feel like it, and it's to find those little things that you get better. But she's off to a great start. She wants to be a really, really good player. She's, again, putting the work in, and we're really happy for her.
You tweeted out a picture maybe a week ago. You had all the freshmen over for dinner, and for those of us who cover the team, we know that you have family dinner, but how important is it to connect with the freshmen? And I guess bouncing off of that, how amazing is it to see what Tia's been able to do on the court? And then you also have to remind yourself that she is a freshman.
Yeah, she's not only a freshman, she's a young freshman. I mean, she turned 18 this summer. I mean, so she was 17 when she was arriving here. I think we're definitely impressed with what she's doing, but again, it's about, for every kid, regardless of if you're coming in and you're a good athlete, you're coming in and you're an elite athlete, our job, our opportunity is to help you develop to your full potential. And one person's potential may be different than somebody else's. And that's true in every sport, every year, that's normal. And we can never ask someone to do something that's not realistic for them, but we can always ask someone to reach their potential. And that's been the case. Even this year is a good example. Okay, was our potential lowered when we lose both of our captains? Yeah, sure. But we can still be really good. And so we have to hold our standard high as a program. We're going to go meet that potential. And so we're going to ask that of Tia. She can do things now as a freshman, just on athletic ability, that are wrong and get away with it because she's so athletic. But over time, she has to learn, okay, if you want to be a kid that can hit 500 for the year and you want to do that every match, you have to learn. And so that's what we have to hold her to, that standard. And I think she's willing to do that. I think she's willing to be held to that standard. As far as having the team over, that's something we love to do. And the freshmen, I think the most challenging thing on that was my wife being asked to cook things maybe that she hasn't before. So this time, Dahila's got to be the one to choose what we're going to have. And so she wanted collard greens, cornbread, which I happen to love both of them, growing up in the South myself. And then we balanced it out with some pasta for Vera, in case Vera tried collard greens and that went sideways. We did some pasta, but my wife did a great job. It was excellent. Collard greens were great. The cornbread was great. And it was just a great time to be together, just to have those 4 young people that are away from home for the first time. And it was just great to have them over, and we enjoyed it.
All right, that's all I got.